So today's training seminar is going to be on security. If at any time there are any technical difficulties, you can raise your hand and just type in the question box as well. But also we will be posting these videos online, both on our YouTube channel as well as our Learning Academy page on our website. My name is Angelina Jacobs. I'm one of the CRM consultants at CRM Dynamics, located in Mississauga, Ontario. As usual, I always say if you have any questions about this webinar or other CRM related questions, feel free to send me a quick email. If it's about the webinar, I can usually answer it pretty quickly, or I can point you in the right direction if you're just looking for additional help or assistance with your Dynamics CRM software. So today we're covering security. I'm going to go over the different security roles in your CRM, which includes discussing the access levels and what those mean, as well as record level privileges. I'll just briefly touch on business units because they are part of the security model within CRM, as well as teams and what those mean. And then lastly, I'll just touch on field security profiles and how you can set specific field security on different entities and different forms within your CRM. So with that in mind, I'm going to open up our CRM here. So I'm going to be using 2016. The biggest visual difference you'll see is the menus and what they look like. But otherwise, the concept is the same in terms of setting security roles and access privileges. So to start, we're going to be going into the settings area of our CRM. So not everyone will have access to this. So if you see you don't, it's most likely because you do not have a system admin role or are able to edit any of the setting areas. But for those of you who do, I'm clicking up here to see our headings here. I'm going to settings and you'll see this drop down and I'm going to click on security. Once in here, you'll see all the areas available to me. So users, security roles, field security profiles, positions, teams, business unit, hierarchy security, and access team templates. This is where we're going to do the majority of our work. So first and foremost, we're going to start with security roles. Dynamics CRM does come with many out-of-the-box security roles, and then you can tweak them as you see fit. So you don't have to create all your security roles from scratch. You can actually just use a lot of the out-of-the-box ones. You'll also see I have some click dimensions ones here. If you haven't heard about that, it's a very good marketing tool that integrates with CRM. But that is why you'll also see these other roles here. So when you're dealing with security roles and you want to create new ones or edit existing ones, if I just wanted to edit, let's say, the salesperson role, I click that, it's going to open up this other window. And you'll see here it shows the role name as well as the business unit that it belongs to. So by default, it's going to be set to the parent business unit of our organization, but you can actually set it to a separate one once we create a new business unit. So I'll also show you how to do that. So from here, we can edit an existing one, or when creating a new one, I usually suggest copying an existing one because otherwise all your stuff is blank. So if I was to edit here, I'd be going through these tabs, but I'll show you if I went to create a brand new security role, it involves a lot of additional work and be very time consuming because if you look and I start selecting on the areas of our CRM, everything is blank. So it means I would have to fill in each and every one of these bubbles in order to set my new security role. So if you're going to create a brand new one, I strongly suggest just copying an existing one, and I'll show you how we do that. To copy an existing security role, all you have to do is select the one you want to copy, go up to the More Actions, and then click Copy Role. I can then give the role a new name. and then select whether I want to open it after or not. So from here, we're going to go through all these different tabs, and they're pretty self-explanatory in terms of what entities they deal with. So your core records are going to be stuff like your accounts, companies, your contacts or your clients, leads, opportunities, and so forth. But you also have your different pieces of your CRM. So marketing, you'll see you have campaign, marketing. So these deal specifically with the marketing piece of CRM. Sales, you'll get into things like orders, invoices, quotes. Service, we'll have cases. Business management, you start to get into the more, these aren't specific entities per se, but different pieces of your CRM that users will need access to, at least read access so that they don't encounter any errors. Same with service management. And then customization. This deals with a lot of being able to customize your system. And then custom entities. This is where any new entity you create will reside. Now that I'm on this custom entities place, you have to know that anytime you create a new entity, you will have to go into all your existing security roles and update the settings here. So if I added a new one in, I would have to update the security settings to make sure the right users are able to see a new entity that I've created. So keep that in mind. If you ever create a new entity in your CRM and a user doesn't have access to it, it's most likely because their security role had not been updated to give them at least read access to that new entity. Okay, so we're going to go through and I'm going to talk about the different access levels of your security roles. Because you'll see here on this screen, sorry, I'll try and get this out of here. There we go. There's all these different colored bubbles. So what these mean here, sorry, I'm just trying to move out my webinar window so it's out of the way, is different access levels to the specific entities. At the top here, this is what we call record level privileges. So not only do you have to select whether they can see or edit within a certain entity, you also have to select what they can do within the records themselves. So I'll start with a very basic one. So let's say we're on company or accounts here. So you have the entity name here. The create privilege right now is set to what is called a user privilege. And you'll see at the bottom here on the form, you have your legend of what these refer to. So a user base is kind of your most basic, lowest level of security aside from none, which means they wouldn't be able to see anything within company at all. But your user-based or basic level of access just gives a user access to records that that specific user owns. So if I had a company and I was the owner of it, I'd be able to see it. But if a company was owned by another user, I would not be able to see that record in the CRM. So a lot of times salespeople will have this type of security so that they only see the list of clients that they own and that they deal with. So on this here, the record level privilege is create, meaning I can only create records that I would own as a user. Going on to the read, very self-explanatory, it just means I can see and read the details of companies, and if I set it to this again, the user basic, I would only be able to read and see the information of records I own. The write privilege, so if I set this to user basic, it means I can edit. So not that I'm creating a new record, but that I can edit details within a record that I own. Delete, again, just means whether I can delete records or not. In this case, again, it's set to the user basic level, meaning I can only delete records that I own. The append and append to, for the most part, these are usually set to the organization level. What the append means is you can associate a record to a current record. So in an example, to append, if a user has rights for this, let's say on an opportunity, the user can add a note to an opportunity, and then the records that can be appended depends on the access level defined in this role. So this is why I usually say to set them, sorry, I'm on company, to set them to organization level, because a lot of times when these aren't set to that, you can run into errors when the users are trying to do things and background system jobs run, and it's usually because there's an append or append to privilege missing. So you kind of have to think about it as append means I can have things appended to my record, let's say if I was an opportunity, and then append to means that I can append myself as an opportunity to another record. So it is a more complex record-based privilege to understand. So for the most part, if you're giving them access of some sort to these entities, I usually suggest giving the organization access to both append and append to. If this is more of a confusing topic, by all means, this is where I would say email me if you need some more clarification, because it is kind of a hard concept to explain without visually showing everything. Assign, pretty basic here, just means I can assign my own records to someone else. And then share means the same thing. I can share them. So the difference between assign and share is assign means I change the ownership of the record. So if I assigned something I own to another user, say Billy, it means Billy then owns the record and I do not. So if I did that and I only had my user basic privilege, it means I would then lose access to that record because I'm no longer the owner. The share one, though, means I keep ownership, but I've shared the specific record with someone else, so they have the same privileges to view and edit and so forth. So that's the difference between assigning a record and then sharing it. Assign, you actually change ownership and it becomes someone else's record. Sharing means you keep ownership, but you've shared that record with another user or multiple users. So now I'm going to focus just on our privileges, what these access levels mean. So I did touch on the user basic level. Again, it's based on the ownership, so it's anything you own as a user. You'll see this half-filled circle. This refers to more local access, and what it does, you'll see here it's labeled business unit. So a local access or business unit access gives users access to records within their business unit. So if I'm assigned a business unit, I then have access to any records that are also in that business unit. One more level up is this parent-child business unit, also referred to as a deep access level. And what this does is it gives the user access to records in the business unit and any child business units within the business unit they're assigned. So that's why it's called the parent-child business unit. So you can have a parent business unit as well as business units that reside underneath it. So anything that's given this access level means they can see their own business unit as well as any child ones with them. The full access level here, the full green circle, is organization based. So this pretty much gives the user access to all records in the organization regardless of what business unit they're in. And for the most part, this is only assigned to people with system admin access or high managers with more authority in the organization. So you'll see here, for example, a lot of these greens are on the read privilege. So it means that users can at least read the records of or within the whole organization. But they can't change anything. So write means they can't change or edit, and then create means they can't create anything aside from their own. So you do have to go through almost each line here to make sure you're giving the right create, read, write, and delete access to each security role that you're creating. So it can be a bit time consuming at the beginning, but it's definitely worth it, especially if security is something you really want to have confirmed within your CRM software. So for core records, I've given someone with a salesperson, when I assign a salesperson role, I've given them create for their own. I've given them read access to only ones they own. I've given them write access, so editing access to only records they own, and I can only let them delete records they own. I could also remove this so they actually can't delete any record. And then I'll show you when we do try to delete one what happens. So you can go through many of these tabs up here. Again, go through each, what these are entities here, and give the proper access. In sales and service as well. There are some other privileges here, so if I go under business management, you'll see I have this privacy related privileges section, and it'll have labels like CRM for mobile, Outlook, being able to print from the system, being able to export to Excel. So these are other areas that aren't necessarily related to a specific entity, but to the system itself, that you can remove some privileges. So if you didn't want users to be able to access their CRM through mobile, you could turn that off. Same with if you didn't want them to be able to export data to Excel, you could turn that off. Again, a lot of companies might do this for salespeople so that they can't, download the data of their clients and then leave with it. Same with printing, you can disable that as well. So there are a lot of more system pieces that you also have to look at down here. Same in the customization tab as well. A lot of times you do have to assign at least read access to these, or else users can run into errors and they'll get error pop-ups. Let's say when you have a workflow running in the background, or you have some special JavaScript code that does automatic changes within the CRM. If you haven't given users read access to some of those pieces, they'll run into errors because stuff they might be doing in the CRM might cause some of these things to run, but if they don't even have read access, they'll get a pop-up error. Same down here, you'll see miscellaneous privileges. So this is other things like being able to activate business process flows, other workflows, executing workflow jobs. For the most part, you want users to be able to do that, especially if you have workflows that run in the background, because some of the changes, again, that they do might trigger these. So there's a lot to look at in your security role profiles, but it's definitely worth it if you want to have a very set and defined security access within your CRM. So if I do any changes, you just have to save and close. It'll update it. While it's updating, I'm just taking a quick look at the questions section, and someone did ask if there's field or tab level privileges. One of the things I will be covering after this is field level security, so we will get into that as well. Just a couple minutes. Now what it's doing here is it's updating a role that is most likely assigned to many users, so it does sometimes take some time. When you're in the back end customizing, I always say be relatively patient because it is system-wide settings. So you'll see here, I now have a list. I have my salesperson demo security role. So now that I've done that, I can assign this to users so that they have the security settings that I created in here. And the way you do that, again, I'm in security, so I click on security. I go to my users. And then I can pick the user here, so I'll pick Bill Jones. And again, most likely some people won't have access to these areas and these settings just because they don't have that security privilege, but as a system admin, you have access to all. So where you're going to manage these security roles is right up at the top, manage roles. If you don't see it in this ribbon, it most likely resides in the additional commands here. So again, just because you don't see something in the top here doesn't mean it's not there. It just might be plugged into this additional menu. So manage roles. From here, I'll be able to see all the roles that are assigned to this user. You can assign more than one security role to a user. However, keep in mind that they then get all the privileges of each role. So let's say one role doesn't give them access to something, but then another role does, and they are assigned both those roles, they will get access. So pretty much the highest security that they get is applied. So just remember, if they do have more than one security role assigned, they get privileges from both or all the security roles that they have. So if I scroll down here, I can see here he's assigned sales demo. I could assign him some other roles if he wanted more privileges. But again, it's just a checkbox, okay, and then it's saved. So that's the first part of security roles. Back into the security place here, you can create different business units and then assign those to users as well. And then that's where that local or business units setting comes into play. So to create a new business unit, you just click on business unit. You'll see here there's always at least one because you need a default organization unit. But to create a new, just click new. Give it a name, so I'll just name this demo business unit. You'll see here you can add the parent business unit and it will default to the organization one. If I had different or if I had multiples, I could look up to a different one, but because I only have one existing, it's assigned that. Just going to go save. Oh, it looks like I already have one name that, so I'm going to call this business unit 2. Probably from a different demo. So I've saved it now. From here, I can add users. I can add different business units as child business units, or I can add teams. Teams are just another group of users, and they could be from different business units. So from here, I could say, in this business unit, I'm going to add a few new users. Oh, sorry, I clicked the new one. So I could actually add a brand new user, but from here, I could see the list of users that are within the business unit, but I will go back to the specific users and assign them this business unit. Users can only be part of one business unit, so you can't assign multiples. I'll go back to my Bill Jones example. You'll see here in the organization information, it has the assigned business unit, and they have to be assigned at least one. By default, they're most likely assigned the organization business unit, but I can change it here. So I just selected this. I could look up to different ones and see a list of all of them. Or I'll try my new one. Oh, it's not showing up. There we go. Sorry, I had the wrong name in there. So Demo Business Unit 2. I just select it here. Then I save the record. And this user is now assigned to the Demo Business Unit 2. You'll see here once I saved them to this new business unit that the teams area populate with the same name. So for each business unit that you create, it will automatically create a matching team as well, so that all users within the business unit are also part of this default team. You can also create multiple teams, but just so you realize when you do create a new business unit, it also creates a default team, but you can also create multiple teams. A user can be part of different teams, but again, can only be part of one business unit. The reason you would use teams is to share records that users don't have access to because they're part of different business units. So with business units, you can have a group of users underneath. But with Teams, you can actually have users from different business units within there. And then that's how you can have team ownership, and users from different business units can see the same data. So it's yet another layer of security access within your CRM. So I hope that answers one of the questions I saw come in between the difference and advantage of setting teams and business units. Is teams, again, you can share data with users who are part of different business units. So now that we've looked at the security roles and business units, we're going to look at that field security profile. So the first thing to keep in mind is this is based on a specific field within the CRM. So you first have to enable field security on the specific field. So I'm going to go through that quickly because I have done previous webinars on creating new fields, but I'll just show you, for example, I'm going to go to our contacts. I'm going to look up a specific one here. So let's say I'm on this basic contact form. None of these are fields that have security on them. So I'm going to create one for this demo purpose. So I'm quickly just going to go through that. If you do need more information on how we're doing this, by all means check out our previous webinars. But I'm just opening up the form. I'm going to create a brand new field, and I'm going to enable field security on it. And that way you can see what secure field look like on the form. So I'm creating a new field. I'm just going to call this special field. And then you'll see here there's this option that says field security. By default, it's always disabled, but I'm going to enable it. Save and close. Again, you do have to be patient when you're doing any customizations because it is adding it to the system, so it has to refresh. I did see someone ask whether a user can be part of multiple teams. Again, yes, they can be part of multiple teams, but they can only be part of one business unit. So I'm going to add that new field that I created to my form. I'm just dragging and dropping in here. And you'll see here, right now I'm in the form edit view, and you'll see I can already tell that this is a field with security on it because it's got this little key. So I'm going to save this change I did. And again, any changes you do have to publish so that they actually get pushed out to the system. I'm going to close this, and then I'm just going to refresh my page. While it does that, I see a few other questions came in. I'm not sure there's really a limit on how many users you can place in a business unit. So however many users, when you create a business unit, you can assign all your users to it if you wanted to. And someone did ask if a user can be part of multiple teams under different business units. The answer is yes. So you would create different teams, and that's the whole point of using teams versus business units, is that teams can share data with users who do reside in different business units. So that is the main difference of why you would want to use teams versus business units. So you'll see here my screen refreshed. You can see the change I just made and see how this special field has a key on it. That means it's a field that has field security. Now, since I'm in here as a system admin role, I have access to these field security fields because of the system admin you have access to all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into a different salesperson, And I'm going to open up this field and we'll see if that shows up to me. So I'm in as that Bill Jones that we assigned the salesperson role. Just refresh my screen in case this was open for too long. Okay, so this is actually very interesting. You'll see here this message says you need a Microsoft Dynamics CRM security role to continue. So because I was logged in and I changed security roles, I'll probably have to just go back in. I'll exit that. So I'll go back in to make sure I did assign that role to the user. So this is what can happen when the system admin is assigning different security roles, or if they haven't assigned a security role, you'll get that. So I'm going to go back into my users. I'm going to click on Bill Jones. Whoops. Screen just moved on me. So I'm going back in users, clicking on that specific user. And because I assigned that new business unit, he most likely doesn't have the roles I need. So, I'll go back through. I'm in the user. I'm clicking on Manage Roles. I'm going to assign a role. So I'm going to scroll down to that salesperson one I created. I'm assigning that. I'm going to click OK. Now he's assigned a security role. Okay, so I'm going to open that back up. I'm going to sign in with this other user. And there we go. So I'm in now that I've been assigned a security role. So from here, I'm going to go into that contact again. I'm going to look up Vicky. And you'll see here, because I haven't assigned any access rights to that special field that I created with a security on it, it not only shows me it's locked, but it also doesn't even show me the data within it. So it comes up as star, and that's because I haven't set a field security profile. So this is what it'll look like if I haven't given any privileges to the user to see any secured fields. So from here, I'm going to go back in. I'm in my system admin account. I'm in security, and I'm going to click on field security profiles. There's a system administrator one. This can't be edited. Obviously, system admin gets access to the full system. So I'm going to create a new one. And you usually try to name these as best to describe what type of field you're dealing with. So I'm going to call this special field access. And that way I know what it's in regards to. So I'm going to save that. And from here, I can not only just add teams, I can also add specific users. So I'm going to click on users, and I'm going to click on add. And I'm going to add that Bill Jones. So I select here, add. You can add multiple users and go add. And then once I've added the users, I go to this field permissions. So this is going to show me any fields that have field security enabled. So you'll see here, here's that new special field I created. And you can see here I have no access. I don't have access to read, update, or create. So I'm going to double click. It's going to open up this window for me. So I'm going to allow read access. I'm going to say yes. But I'm also not going to allow them to update or put new data in. So I'm only giving them read access. I'm going to go OK. Then I'm going to save and close. So now I'm going to go back to that contact I was in. So this is my system admin view. I'm going to go back into the other one here, and I'm just going to refresh the screen to see if it applied that field security profile. Now you'll see that although it still has the lock symbol here and the key, meaning it's enabled, it doesn't just show stars. So it's actually giving me read access. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to be in my other system admin account here, and I'm just going to say hello. So I'm actually putting some data in this field. I'm going to save the record. And then I'm going to go back to that other profile. I'm just going to refresh to see if that data is in there. And there you have it. So I can actually see the data, but again, since I only granted read access, I can't change it. If I click on it, nothing happens. So it's locked down to me. But I can at least see the data in here. A lot of times companies will use this for things like financial data, so only certain financial roles can update the data within the field, but that other users can at least see what there is there. So you can actually limit the type of changes that can be done on a per user basis. There is another type of security that we can't really get into in this webinar just for time allowance, but it's called hierarchy security. And it's more geared towards organizations that really want to get granular with their security settings. So I'll show you in your settings and security area. You see you have hierarchy security. And what this usually relates to is if you have positions within your company. So you can actually create a hierarchy in terms of you might have a designated manager, and then you have the employees underneath. And what this would mean is you could set it up that that manager sees also everything related to the users that are technically underneath them. So you're creating this hierarchy. It's much more granular security if you really want to get into security beyond just business units and teams, as well as the record level that I was showing you. So if that is of interest to you, by all means, reach out and I can send you a few documents on that subject. It's brand new, I think, in 2015, and then obviously 2016 has it as well. So if you don't see that as an option, it's most likely not included in that version of CRM. But again, good thing to mention, if security is a very important piece and you need to get very granular with it, definitely look at the hierarchy security. But on this topic, you could almost spend another 30 minutes. So I'm just mentioning it for today's webinar. So I am going to take some time just to look at some of the questions that are coming in to make sure I allow some Q&A session here. So please take some time, put in your questions if I haven't specifically covered anything on security pieces, and I'll take the next 10 minutes to show anything additional. Okay, so someone asked a good question just on the field security. So they said if a field, or can a security field be hidden to users who do not have permission to, oops, sorry, my question box just moved on me here. So even though the field is locked or not visible, can the value in the field still be used for calculations in other fields? The answer is yes. So even though as a user I can't see or change any data, if there's already a value in there, it can be used if another calculated field depends on it. So field security won't affect system jobs like roll-up fields or calculated fields or workflows that take data from that field. It just means as a user, I won't be able to see it or edit it or create a new record and put data in there. So someone did ask about best practices for setting up teams and security roles, like, you know, if you have departments like sales support. For the most part, when you have specific departments, that's usually when you'd use business units. So if you have a sales department, you'd have a sales business unit. If you have a service department, you'd have a service business unit. And then you could share things within there. Once you start having any cross-sharing, like between service and sales, that's when you would use teams and add specific users to those teams to be able to share information across business units. Someone did ask if you can assign security to sections. So let's say at a section on a form, you can't do that with out-of-the-box security settings. So if that was something you were doing, you'd want to assign either read-write access to all the fields within that section. Now, someone also asked if like a field that has field security enabled, if it can be hidden to users who do not have permission to read them. So I'm assuming you mean like they wouldn't even be able to see the label of that specific field, whether they can see data in or not. That would usually require special script, because otherwise, even if they don't have read, write, or create privileges, they'll still see the field label and the stars, kind of like that first example I showed you. So if you want to completely hide the field from specific users, you usually have to write in a bit more JavaScript that runs in the background. For things like development pieces, you know, when workflows get triggered or there's web resources like, you know, JavaScript that run in the background, that's why I was saying you usually want to at least allow read privileges on those things. So let's say I open up a security role, and I'll go back to that demo one I created. So if I was in the customization tab, there's things like system jobs, workflow processes here. You at least want to give them read access so that if those things do run, they don't run into an error. A lot of times if there's background processes that run, let's say there's custom development and that user has triggered one of those pieces, they'll get an error if they don't have the proper security, and then they can just usually take a screenshot, send it to your system admin, and you can see the exact security role that they lack. A lot of the times it's read access, or it'll be the append and append to access hasn't been given to the security role that they are assigned. So they don't necessarily have to have create or write privileges, they just have to be able to have read and then sometimes append and append to privileges for any of those custom development or workflow processes that run. A lot of times when any security errors are in play, the user will get an error, and there'll also be a log that you can download, and within that log it'll say exactly what they're lacking. So if anyone does run into errors like that and it says they don't have the right privileges, just download the log file, send it to system admin, and they can see within that text exactly what is missing from what role and what piece or entity on the side here. So it's usually a pretty easy fix to apply. So there are a couple questions again that are relating to business units and teams. So in your security settings, the business unit security profile or privileges are when you have a half circle. So if I have this security role, salesperson demo, and if I'm in the entity company and I only give them read access to stuff within their business unit, it means they won't be able to see any other company that resides outside their business unit or that is owned by someone in a different business unit. So that would be business unit security access. If I wanted that user to be able to see companies that are owned by, let's say, service people or other salespeople in different territories per se, that's when you would use teams. So if I assign this user to a team, they will be able to see records that are existing outside of the business unit that they reside in. So that's the biggest difference. So there's security role settings for business units. So if I assign just business units, it means they're only seeing records that, on the read privilege anyway, records within their business unit. Teams would be used if you want to have visibility and collaborate across business units so that users in the teams can see another team's or business unit's data. So that's the biggest difference there of why you would not only set up business units, but also teams if you want to share between departments or business units. And field security does apply to any field you have within your system. So whether it's a text field, a drop-down list, a lookup field, so you can apply it to almost any out-of-the-box field as well as any custom field that you create in your CRM. So it's not necessarily the field type that matters, it's just whether you can actually enable security or not. But for the most part, regardless of whatever field type, whether it's, again, text, checkbox, drop-down, date and time field, you can enable field security and it will apply. So I'll just go back here. If you have any further questions, please send me an email. I'll help you out as best I can. I can even send documentation or at least point you in the right direction. For next month's webinar, if you haven't already seen last year's, we're going to do a new one for the Outlook client. So this is where you can actually access your CRM through your Outlook and then never even have to open up a web browser. So by all means, if you're interested in that, please sign up for next month's webinar. Again, it's on Outlook, and we'll show you how to access and navigate within your Outlook and link with your CRM. Thanks everyone for joining today. I hope you enjoyed this session. And again, send me any emails if you have any further questions. I'm happy to help or point you in the right direction. Have a great day, everyone.